So. Da.
Same size and brand of shoe with mud on them. Right where John told us they'd be. Okay, now the trick is to distinguish one pair of muddy shoes from the other.
Das sollten wir dann im Labor machen. So. Und zwar mit den. Die passen schon mal überein.
The shoe impressions we collected at the crime scene match the treads of the shoes we recovered from the boat. These are the shoes the killer wore.
So weit, so gut. Ich habe aber noch eine Idee. So. Aha.
Good catch. That's a very fine strand of hair.
So, die jagen wir mal durch den DNA-Scanner. Und dann haben wir den Täter, würde ich sagen. So, ich kann mir zwar denken, wer es ist, aber ich werde es trotzdem auf diese Tour hier machen. So. Einmal da. Das passt schon mal nicht. Aber hier passt's. Okay. So. Das passt aber nirgendwo, wa? Nee. Also falscher DNA-Strang. Wie immer. Ist bestimmt wieder der letzte. Warum sollte ich denn heute mal Glück haben? So. Und auch hier ist es wieder das, was mir verrät, dass es das Falsche war. So. Einmal. Wir nehmen auch wieder direkt das hier. Unglaublich, es ist schon wieder der Falsche. Also der letzte. So. Hä? Moment mal. Das passt auch nicht. Da habe ich aber jetzt irgendwo nicht aufgepasst, würde ich sagen. Irgendwo muss es doch passen. Zweiter. Komisch. Hier auch nicht. Oh, da passt es. So. Habe ich da etwa nicht aufgepasst? Wenn der Rest jetzt passt, ne, dann... Hoppala. Nein. Da. So. Rot, rot. Da. So. Hätte ich schon fast wieder zu früh aufgegeben. So. Ja, und es war dann tatsächlich der erste Strang.
Appearances can be so deceiving, can't they? That's Jane Barrett's hair. You know what? That crime scene was staged. We need to talk to Brass.
Alles klar. Schauplätze. Brass. Wir müssen nochmal mit Jane Barrett sprechen. Hallo. Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you for your cooperation, Miss Barrett. We may have some more questions for you at a later time, if that's all right.
No, not at
Was? Hä? Zurück. Ach so, ich soll wieder Jane befragen. Ach ja, ach, das war ja... Moment, das ist doch Jane, oder? Aber irgendwas scheine ich noch übersehen zu haben. Und hier ist auch immer noch nicht abgehakt. Moment mal. Moment mal. Nee. Hm. Nee. Post. So, was steht denn drin? Finden wir raus, was sie zu sagen hat. Ja, haha. Aber die ist ja da schon im Verhörzimmer und sagt nichts Neues.
Thank you for your cooperation.
No, no.
Irgendwas übersehe ich mal wieder. Moment mal. So, Mikroskop, Beweise. Nein. So, gehen wir hier dran. Nix Neues. Nein. Hier ist wahrscheinlich auch immer nur noch der Kasten, der ist schon komplett gecheckt. So. Ich würde ja wirklich sagen, dass in dieser Fingerpuppe noch ein Fingerabdruck dran ist, aber ich finde einfach keinen. Und warum...
So here's what's bugging me. Every time Jane comes to visit, Mary all of a sudden has this wildly unpredictable pattern of morphine dosing. And I just couldn't put my finger on what was gnawing at me. You know, what could Mary possibly be thinking? And then it hit me. If you were to take Mary's erratic pattern and filter it through the computer as a Morse code pattern, did you see Mary's final message right before she died? J-A-Y-N. You know, Morse code has been in use for over 160 years. It only ceased to be an international standard for maritime communication in 1999. And for some reason, I remember when the French Navy ceased using Morse code in '97. The final message transmitted was, "Calling all. This is our last cry before our eternal silence." Let's go talk to Brass.
What evidence do you have?
I mean, this isn't exactly a smoking gun. Jane Barrett may have had opportunity, but as far as we can tell, she hasn't got a motive. Now, our little John and Nurse Lou, they have motive. I'll see what I can do, but now that John's more willing to cooperate, why don't we talk to him and see if he lets something slip? Based on what evidence? The DNA evidence puts Jane Barrett right at the crime scene. I'll get your warrant.
I don't understand. Why am I being brought in like this? I told you before I was at home in Los Angeles.
Miss Barrett, we found your DNA at a location which ties you to Mary's murder.
That's not possible. I gave you my home security system records. I wasn't even in Las Vegas. I was home. This has to be some kind of mistake. Didn't you check with the security company?
That's exactly what we did, Miss Barrett.
You, and everyone we talked to, mentioned how you would always pay Mary a visit every Sunday. But when we reviewed your home security records, we noticed one Sunday when your system listed you as home all day.
I have an explanation. That is,
May we see your phone, Miss Barrett?
I'm going to get a search warrant for your home in Los Angeles, Miss Barrett. I'm going to have LAPD turn over the place and tell me exactly what they find.
May I save you the trouble, Captain? You won't find anything there. You have no case. Just because I wasn't home doesn't mean I murdered my stepsister. That's actually quite a remarkable leap of imagination. And I would guess those don't usually play very well in front of a jury.
I just heard back from the LAPD. They searched Jane Barrett's Lost Hills residence from top to bottom. Found nothing. Look, maybe Jane didn't want to risk traveling around with incriminating evidence on her, so she stashed it around here somewhere. All I'm saying is, it's worth looking into.
Es muss auf jeden Fall irgendwo hier sein, weil hier sind ja auch diese Schuhabdrücke. So. Hallo?
We're a little short on answers right now, but that just...
No. Pass auf, Beweise. Ja, nach wie vor nichts an Fingerabdrücken drauf. Ihr Smartphone. So.
This smudge wasn't on her phone earlier. It's not sticky, it's viscous. Like oil.
Aha! Jetzt hab ich dich. Blöde Kuh. So. Tada! Chemikalie, Beweise das mit dem. Perfekt.
It's petroleum oil with a very low ash content. Looks like the type of two-stroke oil you'd use in jet skis. The chemical impurities in both oil samples match, which means we can put Jane at the lake very recently, but why would she go down there? Unless maybe she was trying to hide something from us. I think we're gonna need something to search below ground as well as above.
So, dann holen wir uns den Beschluss. Ach, nicht in der Fallakte, sondern bei Brass. Hallo. Haben wir noch das Ultraschallgerät aus dem Brandfall?
Ah, yes. The ultrasound device. It's impressive. But it's also expensive. Let's just be sure we really need it before we start wasting valuable resources.
Da-da!
This evidence places Jane Barrett in proximity to that pool of motor oil. Okay. I'll get you that ultrasound device. Let's see if we can find out why she was there.
So, dann mal hin. So.
So this is what Jane was trying to hide. A hammer. She buried the hammer right on top of a wrench, which looks as though it's been down there for a while. Looks like some kind of softer metal got embedded in the pitting on the hammerhead. These particles are bronze, and they're a perfect match to the bronze that the bust is made out of. The bronze particles didn't come off by smashing the regulator. Someone deliberately shaved them off and planted them. So our killer wanted us to make the connection to the bust, and wanted to make sure we found those muddy footprints right by it. And he or she assumed that if we did, our focus would turn to John and Pauline.
Dann holen wir uns halt erstmal diesen DNA-Vergleich da. Moment. Fingerabdruck meine ich. Mit dem. Mach mal so. Und Ja, Analyse. So. Was könnte... Oh, da.
You didn't find anything, did you? I tried to save you the trouble. So is that it, officers? You'll never really know, will you?
Here's your fingerprint. We found it on the hammer you buried by the lake.
The same hammer you used to knock off a piece of that bust. The one you planted with the broken regulator.
I'm just curious, Jane. Why the bust of Mary's father? Did you resent the Marst family that much?
I hated them. Hated them for stealing my family from me. You know, when my parents died in that oh-so-tragic skiing accident, it made me start believing that there was the possibility of justice in this world. Like God had answered my prayers and punished them for abandoning me. But then Mary took over the company. She was just a stupid little party girl, and there was nothing I could do about it. But as soon as Mary resigned, that very night, I was ready. God really does help those who help themselves. Mary survived her accident, which upset me. Why was God punishing me? But I planned to try again, and that's when I bought that application for my phone so I would be able to create an alibi. But you know, I realized I could just watch Mary die, bit by bit. It was then that I completely understood God's plan for me. I wasn't being punished. I was being rewarded. And then one day, I found John standing over Mary, crying and begging her not to die because she was the only family he had left. But I'm his real sister. That very day, I snuck into John's room to find something that would lead you to him and his naughty nurse. I took a chip of her fingernail from the trash in his room. Then yesterday, I used my phone to make it look like I was home. Then I drove to Vegas. It only takes about 4 hours. In the right car, that is. I went down to the family boat, put on my gloves, got John's muddy shoes, and drove to the chalet. I waited for my brother and his whore to go to his room, and then I snuck in. I put on the shoes and took the bronze bust from the front room. As soon as she saw me, Mary started panicking, pushing her regulator button over and over and over. Do you need some help with that, Mary? I cracked open Mary's regulator with the bust, then used the hammer to chip off a bit of it. That part was for you guys to find. Then, and this was the best part, I put the broken regulator in Mary's hands and I forced her to push the button. I looked into her terrified eyes to watch the morphine melt her soul away. And then, she almost wrecked it. She looked at me, and she smiled at me. She was trying to trick me, make me think she was glad to die. Like this was what she'd wanted all along, as if God was freeing her, not me. After she was dead, I planted that tiny bit of the fake fingernail on her hand. I replaced the bust, returned the shoes to the boat, and buried the hammer. Then I drove home. I got back just in time to catch my flight.
You might be right, Jane. Mary may have been happy to finally be released of her burden. Or maybe she was smiling because she'd been able to spell out most of your name on her regulator right before she passed. I think she was smiling because she knew you weren't going to get away with murder.
Well, we'll never know for sure now, will we?
I do know one thing for sure, Miss Barrett. You may have been neglected by your family, but we're going to be paying a lot of attention to you now, probably for the next 25 years to life.
Very good work, you two. A confession is always a nice bonus in a case like this one.
Technically, 2 confessions. One for last night's murder, and another for last year's attempted murder.
You keeping score, Nikki?
I just think my partner here deserves full credit for chalking up 2 scores. I think it should go a long way towards breaking up that cloud hanging over the team because of Huntby.
You let me worry about Huntby.
I'm telling you, Catherine, he's dirty.
Good night, Nikki.